I don't want an old woman who can't even have a child." My husband spat out those words as he thrust the divorce papers at me. While rubbing her slightly swollen belly, my sister had a triumphant smile on her face. It was frustrating. It felt empty. I hated the world where my sister, who lived by stealing other men, seemed more rewarded than me, who lived honestly. Still, I couldn't bring myself to live like my sister and chose to live an honest and solid life. Then, one day, a miraculous turning point came into my life. I am Amy. I am 32 years old and work as an office worker at a small company. My hobbies are reading and saving money. And I prefer a very simple style focused on cleanliness for clothes and makeup. I'm the type who wants to use good things for a long time. Tom, who proposed to me saying, "You're solid and wonderful," liked that about me. Tom was a sales representative for a client of the company I work for. And as we saw each other, we became close friends when we discovered we were the same age. Tom is tall and not bad looking. But since he graduated from an all-boys school and worked in a workplace with few women, he wasn't used to women, and I seemed to be his first girlfriend. I liked his earnest personality, who, although clumsy, cherished me. Our marriage was smooth at the beginning. However, as I didn't get pregnant even after a year, dark clouds began to loom. I bravely went to the OB/GYN, and there was no particular issue with my body. I suggested Tom also visit the hospital, but he evaded with a vague excuse, "But I'm a man." He must have his pride as a man. But if there was a problem with him that could be treated, I wanted to work on it together. If it wasn't possible, it would be fine for us to just live together. But if there was a chance, I wanted to have a child with Tom. No matter how many times I appealed, Tom would respond vaguely, and seemed unwilling to see a doctor. Then, one day, my sister Kathy, who got married 5 years ago and is 3 years younger than me, returned to our parents' home. Kathy got pregnant by a 20-year-old university student when she was 24, rebelled against our parents who were against the marriage, and moved into her partner's home. She hadn't shown her face at all for 5 years. But it seems she divorced and left the child with the man's family. My in-laws tormented me, so I came back. I wanted to raise my son, but he was taken away by my husband's parents. She cried to Mom, but we don't know the truth. Because Kathy has always been good at fake crying and eliciting sympathy. Unlike me, who is plain, Kathy has a glamorous appearance and always wears trendy clothes. She has always lived a life with men by her side. When she gets tired of the guy she's dating, she makes him look bad and invites the sympathy of the next guy she's after. Then she switches to a new guy. So, I think there must have been something with her relationships with men this time. And usually, our mom would see through Kathy's lies. But perhaps because it's her daughter who returned after a long time. Or because she was weakened by our dad's death last year, she was swayed this time. Well, it's family, so it can't be helped. That's how I turned a blind eye. However, I would come to know that this decision was the worst after it was too late to undo. During the Easter holiday, as usual, I brought Tom to visit, and of course, Kathy was there. Kathy, who did not attend our wedding, was naturally meeting my husband for the first time. Tom, who is not used to women, takes a step back as the young woman relaxes in a camisole and shorts. But when Kathy saw Tom's face, her eyes lit up. "Wow, sis, your husband is so handsome." "What?" Both of us were stunned. Indeed, thinking back, Tom has the same type of delicate features as Kathy's previous boyfriends. "Nice to meet you, I'm Kathy, Amy's sister. Looking forward to getting along with you, bro."
Yeah.
Called a bro, in a sweet voice by Kathy, Tom turned red and looked away. During the meal, Kathy, for some reason, sat next to Tom, smiling and talking to him, and kept touching his arm and knee. Seeing my distress, Mom reprimanded Kathy, but she brushed it off with, "But I'm just happy to have a brother now." Tom turned to me with a face red for help. Reluctantly, we began to prepare to leave early. As we did, Kathy whispered in my ear, "Sis, you've caught yourself a good man." It sent shivers down my spine. In the car on the way back, Tom, looking drained, said, "Your sister is something else." So, I apologized, "I'm really sorry." At that moment, I realized Kathy had taken a liking to Tom. But I thought nothing would come of it because of Tom's lack of interest. However, for Kathy, who was experienced with men, seducing Tom, who wasn't used to women, was probably easy. By the next spring, Tom, with his arm around Kathy's shoulder, declared, "I love Kathy, so I want us to break up." Naturally, I was shocked and felt dizzy. That's unforgivable. Even if you don't forgive me, the fact that I no longer love you doesn't change. Why? Sorry, sis. But I knew the moment I met him that Tom was my destiny. Kathy. Forced to witness their infatuated gazes, I became infuriated. "Kathy, you. Hey, don't lay a hand on Kathy. She's carrying my child." "What? Tom's child? After 2 years of trying between us? Really? Kathy is really carrying Tom's child?" I couldn't help but stare at Kathy's belly, and she smirked triumphantly. "Yes. You might have thought Tom was infertile, but I easily got pregnant with his child." "No, that can't be true." Tom looked down on me as if I were trash. "It seems you were the only defective one. Blaming Tom when you're the defective one is the worst." Poor Tom. Kathy leaned on Tom, and he gently stroked her hair. "Don't talk like that. I just wanted a child with you. That's why I wanted you to go to the hospital." That was pressure. "Not just about the child. You always talk about us saving and expenses for old age, forcing a poor lifestyle on me. I was sick of not being able to spend money freely like when I was single. You and your life are plain, lackluster, and boring." Tom's harsh words cut through me. "You were the one who said you liked my solid nature. Compared to that, Kathy has always been kind to me. That's why she's carrying my child. That's not. I didn't mean to blame you. Even if you couldn't have children, I would have accepted you. I just wanted you to get tested at the hospital, just once. Was I wrong? So, the child ended up in my sister's belly?" I felt faint, and everything went dark before my eyes. The reality that my own sister stole my husband and I have a child in her belly, which I was never able to have, is so heavy that I can't even muster the strength to blame them both. As if to mock me further, Tom placed the filled-out divorce papers on the table. "If you've understood your mistake and your position, then hurry up and sign. Don't worry, I'll pay the compensation properly. After all, I'm dumping a pitiful older woman who can't even bear children." Tom is so kind. Their voices faded into the distance. Crushed by despair, I was left alone as the two of them quickly disappeared after leaving the divorce papers behind. Over the next few days, I managed to regain my sanity and, in the end, agreed to the divorce as they had suggested. Though I had the option to refuse since I was the victim, I couldn't bring myself to make an innocent child illegitimate. Instead, I secured a fair amount of compensation through a lawyer. Tom paid it all at once without any hesitation. It saddened me to think he was willing to pay to be rid of me. Hearing about my divorce and my sister's affair, my mom seemed even more shocked than I was. She declared, "Never set foot in this house again." To Kathy and Tom, and threw Kathy's belongings out of our home. then embracing me as she apologized with tears, saying, "I'm sorry, it's because I welcomed her in." My mother and I cried together. It was frustrating. It felt empty. I despised the world where my sister, living by stealing another's man, seemed more rewarded than I, who lived earnestly. Yet, I couldn't bring myself to live like my sister, and continued to lead a modest and solid life even after the divorce. That's when a turning point came into my life. One holiday, while reading a book in my favorite book cafe, someone approached me, asking, "Could you be Amy?" When I looked up, I recognized the face. David? I knew it. It's been a long time. David, a classmate and childhood friend, smiled happily. We hadn't seen each other since we went to different schools, and had since drifted apart. Our conversation flowed as if we hadn't been apart, and I learned that he too had divorced and returned to his hometown. His ex-wife had been irresponsible with money, leading to a divorce due to significant debt. When I shared my own experience of my ex-husband and sister's affair, he was indignant on my behalf, which pleased me. Finding out we both enjoyed books, we hit it off and began seeing each other frequently, eventually starting a relationship. Both of us living frugally, we were confident that we could make it work. I mentioned that I might not be able to have children, but he laughed it off, saying we'd live happily together regardless. I wanted to spend my life with him. 2 years after reuniting, we had a small wedding ceremony in Hawaii and registered our marriage. 3 years later, while relaxing at home with my mother, the doorbell rang. Kathy and my ex-husband barged in, appearing for the first time in 5 years. Upon seeing me, they sneered in a disgusting manner. "Ah, it's sis. As plain as ever. And you're even without makeup. The granny smell just adds to it." Hilarious. How can you live with yourself if you're infertile? Aren't you ashamed as a woman? Yeah. Too bothered to engage with their demeaning remarks, I responded dismissively. In my stead, my mother glared at them. "I told you two never to come back here." "Oh, Mom. Still holding on to that grudge? You'll never see your grandchildren if you keep that up." "That's fine. Pretending to be tough, huh? Once you see my adorable daughter, you won't be able to say that anymore." "Lillian, come here." Confident Kathy called to the entrance, and a girl around 5 years old ran over. She resembled Kathy, pretty but silent, just watching us. "Isn't she cute?" "Your first grandchild." "Yes, she's a lovely child." "You must be regretting now, right? Protecting my sister instead of me. But it's okay, I forgive you. Just kick out the divorced, infertile loser, and we'll live with you. You can take care of your granddaughter every day. Happy, right?" Kathy continued to demean me while selfishly rattling on about her conveniences. My mother, with an impassive face, watched her silently. As Kathy's words trailed off, my mom sighed. "I understand what you're trying to say, but there's no way I could live with you two. Come on, don't be so stubborn. If you keep sympathizing with my sister, you'll never get to dote on your grandchild, you know?" Kathy laughed merrily, while Tom smirked condescendingly at me. Just then, a sound like a cat's meow was heard. "Huh? Mom, did you start keeping a cat?" Looking confused, Kathy glanced around. Mother quietly raised her arm, pointing towards the room next to the living room. "Look over there." "Huh?" Instead of the dumbfounded Kathy, I opened the door to the room Mother was pointing at. Inside, one child was sleeping on a blanket, and 2 babies were fussing and crying. "Huh? Whose kids are these?" "They are my grandchildren." "Huh? Your grandchildren? What do you mean?" "What do I mean? If they're not your kids, they obviously must be your sisters. What? Their screams echoed as the two younger children started fussing even more. Mother and I took turns calming them down. Seeing the disbelief in their eyes, I decided to explain my current situation. I got remarried 2 years ago. But weren't you infertile? Holding a baby, I countered his sleepy remark. Well, seeing these kids in front of you, you can tell I'm not infertile, right? We started trying for a baby right away, and before we knew it, I was pregnant. And the second time, it was twins, so it was quite a handful. Oh. He nodded awkwardly, clearly embarrassed for having discarded me as a defective. Mom, gently soothing one of the babies, sternly told them. So, as you can see, we're not short on grandchildren. In fact, we're so busy we could use an extra pair of hands. Your sister may have moved out after getting married. But she comes back with her children, so there's no advantage for us in living with you too. Ugh. Kathy choked on her words, but quickly recovered and insisted. That's so cruel, Mom. Are you discriminating against your grandchildren? You brought this on yourself. How much are you giving my sister's kids? You didn't give my child anything. You brought this on yourself. Tom's parents are trying to disown us too. Isn't that pitiful? Help us. You brought this on yourself. Ugh. Kathy began to sob, but Mom remained unmoved. It appeared that Kathy and Tom had been forsaken by Tom's family as well and were in financial trouble. I don't know what they did, but they betrayed me and my mom would never lend a hand. Just then, another visitor appeared at the front door. Hello there, oh, visitors? My husband, David, who had gone to buy diapers at the drugstore, appeared unexpectedly. Seeing David, Kathy's face turned red as she shrieked. David. Oh, Kathy, huh? You know each other? Taken aback by Kathy's girlish reaction, Tom was momentarily taken aback. However, Kathy paid no attention to Tom, hastily fixing her hair and fidgeting as she asked David. Why is David at our house? Why? Because this is my wife and children's home. What? Yeah, I married your older sister, Amy. What? Kathy let out a voice of despair. And it was no wonder. For Kathy, David was not only a childhood friend but also her first love, whom she had adored since they were kids. Even Kathy, who was skilled at manipulating men, reverted to a shy, adorable girl in front of David. Whenever David had a girlfriend, Kathy would lash out at me or recklessly pursue men in her distress. And now, her first love, whom she deemed inferior to herself, had married her plain older sister and even had children with her. It was enough to drive her insane. But, you were married, right? Did my sister seduce you? Of course not. She is not like you, after all. Kathy felt the blood drain from her face at David's cold gaze. I heard you went as far as having a child to steal Amy's husband. I'm disappointed in you. That's not true. David continued, I've heard rumors about you playing around with various men since we were kids. But I never believed them. You were like a little sister to me. But it turns out to be true. I'm disappointed. It's not like that, not like that. Please leave. This house is also precious to me. If you do anything to my wife or children, I'll never forgive you. Faced with her first love's hatred, Kathy began to tremble violently. This is wrong, all wrong. Lies, all lies. Kathy? Lies, 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 lies. Tom, watching Kathy mutter incoherently, turned pale. Now you see, I'm not infertile. And Kathy has always been surrounded by rumors about men. You chose her, so take responsibility and take her with you.
Ah.
Tom, dazed, dragged away the mumbling Kathy and left. I drove their child, Lucy, off to Tom's parents, who are decent people. They criticized Tom and Kathy for their actions, but supported them for the child's sake. If they're about to disown Kathy and Tom, it must mean they've acted terribly. Seeing her grandparents, Lucy ran to them with a bright smile. Relieved, I returned home to my husband and children. Later, Kathy secluded herself, then lashed out at Tom, left without money. Disowned by both families, and faced unjust treatment from his wife. Despite being labeled infertile, his ex-wife, who now has 3 children, succumbed to distrust and secretly conducted a DNA test on Lucy, which confirmed she was indeed his child. Perhaps it was just incompatibility that prevented us from having children. However, when Kathy found out about the DNA test, she exploded, further damaging their marriage until Tom, taking Lucy, fled and divorced. Tom had to grovel before his parents, but it seems they allowed him to return for Lucy's sake. I hope Lucy grows up happy under the care of her grandparents, who cherish her deeply. Meanwhile, Kathy, a stay-at-home wife with no savings, desperately searched for her next host. She met a man on an app who lured her with a lucrative offer, and she ended up being a part of the scam. When the man was charged with fraud, Kathy, who had assisted him, was arrested as well. A prison filled with women and devoid of men must feel like hell to Kathy. The thought of her possibly facing a prison sentence fills me with pity, despite everything. Half a year later, I sneak out to the living room on a weekend night, where my husband has prepared cocoa with marshmallows. We sit on our carefully chosen sofa, enjoying a quiet moment with a small toast. Good job today. The rich sweetness fills my mouth, while a gentle warmth spreads through my palms. As I savor this comfort, my husband has already opened a new book from his favorite author, diving into a world of fantasy. I, too, grab a book I've been eager to read, excitedly turning to the first page. My sister and ex-husband might laugh and call it plain if they saw us. But what others say doesn't matter to me. As our precious children sleep soundly after a satisfying day, spending time reading with my husband, my greatest supporter, creates a serene space. This is, for me, the ultimate moment of bliss.